I welcome everyone that has joined us today on this topic of strategies for more productive meetings. It's been my experience over the last 15 years that people go to meetings expecting them to be bad. People walk in not understanding the agenda, not sure why they're there, and frankly they think, this is really a pay break. It's an hour away from my office that I've got to sit here when there's so many other things that I need to be doing back at my desk. So what I want to focus on is, one, how do you have more effective meetings, but then how can you leverage your meetings into more effective communication within your organization? And Learjet, who Connor referenced earlier, who will be hosting a private visit for us, and you're certainly invited to attend, they will tell you our meetings were bad. They weren't productive. They weren't action-driven, outcome-focused. It was really coming together, and nothing was accomplished. We talked about the same things over and over again. So as we move forward, I want you to look at this and think about, there's some strategies, some tips that we can do differently, but then also how can we be more effective at communicating with our employees through a meeting process with that. One of the things that we do at Competitive Solutions is when we begin working with an organization, we'll go in and we'll conduct what we call a readiness assessment, and really looking at what are the strengths of the organization, what's the organization doing well, and then what are some areas of opportunity. And inevitably, just about every organization we've ever worked with, walking in there, I can tell you that communication is going to be a top issue in there. When I talk about communication, lack of trust, because people don't understand what's going on within the business. And what I want to share with you is I did an assessment, my team and I did an assessment back in November of 2011. And these are verbatim comments I pulled out earlier this week from that assessment that we conducted about this company in upstate New York. One, by the time I hear about something, it's too late to react. Very common there. I only hear from my boss when there's a problem. Unfortunately, many organizations today have that type of culture. And what I want us to change, and I'll give you a tool later on, a strategy, is I want us to have a culture of recognition so that when our employees do something well, and when they go above and beyond, we provide that recognition to them, and not have a culture where we're going to run out and speak with them and give them feedback when things aren't going so well. The next one I heard, grapevine more reliable. Frankly, what people don't know, they make up. And so if they hear something in the rumor mill, something on the grapevine, they'll take it and they will run with it whether or not it's true. Let's look at some more that we got here. Some more comments. People in other departments always know what's happening way before we do. And that's shown when you got some managers that are very open, very honest, that will share everything that he or she knows to the team. And you've got other managers who, frankly, they don't want their team to know anything. They keep all the information to themselves, and they don't disseminate that out amongst their team there. My email inbox is overflowing. Many of you probably can relate to that, because most of the time, and I read a study recently, I think it was 22% of the emails that you receive in a day are relevant to you. And what I'm talking about there is it's something that you need to react and take action upon. But think about the emails that you get. Most of the emails that you get are probably you're CC'd on, an FYI, and it's a long string of replies that people are putting in there. You don't have time to look at everything on your email and be productive within your organization. And then the final one, information flows one way. They, being senior leaders, they never listen to us. And we're going to talk about later on how can we have a two-way process where information flows down from our senior leaders, but then also how questions, information can flow up within our organization. I'm going to give you a strategy around that that's very successful, and it's very successful at Learjet, and Learjet will tell you that was one of the key components of improving communication within the organization, was to have that two-way flow of information up and down. I'm going to pause here. Connor referenced earlier at the beginning that we'd be doing polls during our webinar today. And Connor, if you would launch our first poll about communication, please. All right, we'll go about 10 more seconds. All right, interesting results there. A lot of people picking various ones on there, so that resonates with you within your organization. I came across this statistics last year, and I found it fascinating that a company such as Microsoft, they found that 71% of the meetings their employees attend aren't productive. Think about that. 71% of the meetings they attend are not productive. And then there's another one that was interesting. I found in Inc. top 3 complaints about meetings: disorganized rambling. Probably those meetings, they don't have an agenda. People aren't focused. There's not a facilitator leading that meeting, leading that discussion. Peers dominate the meetings. Cell phones, BlackBerry interruptions. Every organization that I go into and I sit in meetings, I see people, and whether or not they want to admit it, they've got their cell phones, their BlackBerries, their iPhones underneath the conference room table, texting, checking email, maybe surfing the internet while attending meetings. Not very focused with that. And I'm going to share with you later on what a company in Nashville, Tennessee did as a direct result of number 3 within their organization. So let's talk about communication. Why is it broken, and what are some of the failing methods that we see? Intranet pages, company internet pages. Do you really go look at your company intranet to find out what's going on with the organization? Check stuffers. I don't know about your organization. My organization here at Competitive Solutions, we have direct deposit. I open up the envelope to my paycheck one time and open up the very first pay period of the year to see how much money I'm getting and how much money is going to the government in terms of taxes. And after that, I just take those envelopes and I file them away. So not an effective way to communicate is putting check stuffers in their bulletin boards. Learjet, when I first visited there, they had some beautiful bulletin boards where there was cars for sale, people needing babysitters, and then the government information, but really no information tying people to the business, no information to share on the success of the business and what needed to happen to help it be successful. Newsletters. I'm sorry, folks, but a 4-card, 24-page newsletter that is mailed to everyone's house is not an effective means of communication because it relies upon someone to read it. And let's be honest, do you run home at night looking for that company newsletter in your mailbox? Because now you can open up and understand everything that's going on within your organization. Meeting minutes. I'm not a big fan of meeting minutes because one month I may be responsible for the meeting minutes, and my meeting minutes are going to consist of 6 bullet points that we talked about. And then the next month, Jamie, she was in charge of the meeting minutes. She may have written 6 pages, so there'll be huge discrepancy in the quality of the meeting minutes with that. And then the number 1 form of what people think is communication, I call this advertising. I call all of these advertising. Email. Email requires someone to open the email, to read it, and react for it to be an effective form of communication. And we touched on earlier how we don't have time to go through every single email that we get within our organization. Why are these methods not effective? Well, it's one way. We're just throwing a message out there, hoping that the right person will read and react to it. We have no confirmation that it ever was sent. And how many times has someone said to you, or you said to someone, hey, did you get my email? Hey, I sent you an email about that. You ask those questions because you're not sure, or that person's not sure, did you get my email? What people don't know, they make up. It's that rumor factor I mentioned a few times ago. No standard mechanism for feedback. All ties to advertising. It's a one-way flow of information relying on the receiver to read the information. So what's the fix? So how do we break this cycle of advertising and have effective meetings? We need to have two-way information flow, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, a pass-up, pass-down process. Active engagement between the senders and receivers, and that's manifests itself by a face-to-face meeting to talk about the business. Established rhythm of communication. Do a lot of work with the Department of Defense. They call it the battle rhythm of communication, of having a weekly face-to-face meeting to talk about the business, to talk about what's going on. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that we have in common from 8 to 5 is the business. That's the one thing that everyone in the organization has in common is the business. And then the last, we're going to talk about standard tools, very simple tools that everyone can utilize so that we're then communicating, not advertising. Cara, if you would launch our second poll where we're going to talk about the meetings that your organization has right now.
more seconds. There you go.
All right, so I want to spend the remaining time together, the next 20 minutes, talking about productive meetings, what goes into productive meetings, what are some strategies you can utilize, some very simple things that you can immediately start applying within your organization. The first thing that I want to, we're going to talk about is establishing ground rules. And I know it sounds simple, it sounds basic, but once you've got those ground rules established, you've got the context, the framework to have a productive meeting. We're going to talk about meeting roles, defining meeting roles. We're going to talk about having a standard meeting agenda, about the utilization of an action register to capture critical assignments and tasks. And we're going to talk about the pass-up, pass-down process to get that two-way flow of information within your organization. And then finally, we're going to talk about the meeting audit, because typically folks talk about the meeting, how bad the meeting was, outside of the meeting. They're walking down the hallway. They're at the coffee pot, the water cooler. They're at lunch, and they'll say, that is the absolute worst meeting. I can't believe we even come together to talk about things, because it's not focused, it's not value added to the business. So we're going to talk about how do you have a meeting audit process in your organization? What does that look like? I'm going to share with you some successes that came out of Learjet as a result of that. Ground rules, some basic ground rules that I like to see. One, arrive on time. There was a company I worked with out in San Francisco, and their culture, their organization was this. If I had a meeting at 2 o'clock, that meant I packed up and left my cubicle, my work area at 2 o'clock. People were arriving at 2:04, 2:05, very disruptive. So the team, they made the decision that at 2 o'clock, the conference room door got locked. And if you weren't in that conference room, you weren't attending that meeting. That one ground rule right there, it changed the culture in that organization so that people arrived on time, so they're prepared. Come prepared. Look at your scorecard in advance. Look at the agenda. What are the topics you're going to talk about? Be prepared to answer questions about your scorecard. Why is the metric below target? Talk with your team so when you walk into that meeting, you're prepared with answers, and you've got the ability to provide real, meaningful information for the team within that. No smartphones or BlackBerries. Eliminate those. And I'll tell you what a company did in Nashville, Tennessee. They had a huge problem with phones interrupting their meetings. So they put outside the conference room next to the receptionist desk in a wicker basket, everyone needed to place their cell phone. And you would have thought when this request was put in that you were asking people to give up their firstborn child. But what they, because people were saying, well, what if my kid's school calls, or what if my spouse calls, or what if my work area needs me? Well, then what you do is there's a pad of sticky notes you put on your phone. If these numbers call, please answer, come get me. That singular ground rule right there of smartphones, BlackBerries, really increased the effectiveness of that organization's meetings, because people weren't in there being sidetracked, focused on texting and email and other things. They were at the table, they were prepared, and they were actively engaged within the business on that. Next one speaker at a time. We at Competitive Solutions, and I get asked all the time, Competitive Solutions, you talk about meetings and face-to-face and communication. Do you actually do it? Absolutely do. Every Monday morning at 10 a.m. we come together. And one of the issues we had was that people were interrupting each other, getting excited, wanted to say something. And so we came up with a ground rule. If you interrupt somebody, you need to put a dollar bill on the conference room table. And after someone has spent $7, $8 to attend a meeting, they learn to wait their turn. And that ground rule right there really helped us, helped change the culture of our meeting. Participation is not optional. If you can't attend, have someone from your team that's prepared, that's got the answers, have them attend that meeting so to maintain that continuity and meeting flow. Next I want to talk about is the meeting roles. And I believe there's 4 distinct meeting roles that you need to have. First one is the meeting facilitator. This is the person that is charged to making sure that the meeting starts on time, that we stick to the agenda, we don't get off topic, that when it's necessary, when we've discussed an item or something, a topic for 3-4 minutes, makes a decision, say, what's the action here? What do we need to do as a result of what we're talking about? And these meeting roles, I want them defined before the meeting. And so every 30 days, these meeting roles rotate. So before you go into that meeting, I want people to know what their role is. I don't want us to spend the first 5-6 minutes deciding who's going to be the facilitator, who's going to be the action register keeper. I want that defined up front. The action register keeper, this is the person who during the meeting documents critical assignments and tasks. When people volunteer or people are assigned an action, I want the action register keeper to write that down, and at the end of the meeting, as we review the action register, to go over the actions to make sure that people understand we're going to remove ignorance as an excuse. We're going to put someone's name by it. We're not going to put the team or to be determined, put someone's name down by it with a target date, so that when we come back together next week, we can talk about what that action was and wasn't completed on time. Because many times, and you probably see it in your organization, you're sitting in a meeting and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, John said last week he would do this. Here it is a week later. He hasn't done it. So have the action register keeper. The next one is the pass up, pass down person. This is the person who, during the meeting, as people say, this is a pass down item, or someone says this is a pass up item. And what pass down is, it's key business information we want everyone in our organization to utilize, to know about. Pass up is if lower levels, if they have questions, if they need to elevate it, they need to move it up in the organization. There's a process, a mechanism in place to make that happen. And Learjet will tell you, this right here, the pass up, pass down, greatly improved communication, because now they knew what was going on in their organization by having the pass up, pass down process in place. And then the fourth and final one is participants. My definition of a participant is someone who shows up, who's engaged, who's got answers to questions within the organization, within the team. So again, define these up front before you walk into that meeting so you don't waste time doing it. The next thing I want to see is a standard meeting agenda. And what I mean by standard meeting agenda is this. The organization determines what are the topics we want every team, every work group in our organization to talk about on a weekly basis. You certainly can add to it. So for instance, this agenda that I'm going to show you in a few minutes, this is the agenda you'll see at Learjet. Now, the HR department, Justin Wilner, they may add 2 or 3 topics on there related to hiring. The IT group may have 2 or 3 topics related to something there. The manufacturing production group, what have you. But the key is it's a standard agenda, so no matter what meeting I go to, I know that what's going to be on the agenda. First thing is the action register review. Let me show you what an action register looks like. I touched on it a few minutes ago, but the first column is the action, what someone needs to do. And when you hear terms such as I will, someone should, let's do this, those are action terms. That's someone saying we've got to do something about it. So let's document what they're talking about. Let's capture that. The next column is the owner, who must complete that action. As I said before, you can't assign the team. You can't assign multiple names of Michael, Jamie, and John, because what's going to happen when you come back together a week from now is Michael's going to think Jamie has done it, Jamie's going to think John has done it, and you know what? No one has done it. Singular name under the owner column, the target date, when it must be completed by. Maybe it's just next week, maybe it's 2 weeks from now, maybe it's a month from now. But let's have some accountability built in by putting a target date on it. Then when was that action completed? Because once that action is completed, we're not going to delete it. We're just going to drop it down to the bottom of our action register. We're going to archive it. And then the last column, the comments field. If the action if the target date wasn't met, let's put down a reason why. Hey, I was waiting to hear back from our supplier, or so-and-so was on vacation. I couldn't get up with them. So put in the comments field why that action was not completed on time. The next one, the scorecard review. And this is really what the meeting is about, is to talk about our scorecard, to talk about performance of how we're doing within the organization. Let me show you an example of a scorecard. And this is typically, this piece of the meeting, this agenda is about 30 minutes at Learjet. And they spend about 15 to 17 minutes looking at their scorecard, talking about providing recognition on metrics that are green, but then talking about, hey, why are we red? And they're coming up with corrective actions they're putting on their action register that says, hey, we've got this issue with our supplier, but here's what we're doing about it. We've got an on-time delivery issue within our site, but here's what we're doing about it. So they're putting in place, they're taking actions during their meeting, putting it on the action register of the things they need to be working on during the week to drive that business forward, to advance the business. Next thing is the around the table. This is the engagement piece. This is where folks that have issues, items, concerns, this is where they have the ability to bring them up. And what I like to see is I like literally for the facilitator to go around the room, around the table, and say, Randy, do you have anything? No. Paul, do you have anything? No. Michael, do you have anything? Yes. Michael may raise an issue about IT and the new laptops, or he may have an issue about the HR. And when that issue comes up, either we discuss it briefly and Michael gets his answer, or it's something that we put on the action register. What I don't want to happen is people to bring up issues at the around the table piece of the agenda, and you spend 6, 7, 10 minutes talking about it, and there's no resolution. If you can't get immediate resolution, put it on the action register and action it out for someone to complete that action. I touched on earlier about the topic of recognition, and I'm a very big proponent that recognition needs to go on your weekly meeting agenda. It's that mental trigger that says, is there anyone that we want to recognize? And you may say, you know what, I want to recognize Ann and Will. They stayed late on Friday night. We had a problem with the servers. They were here doing that. I want to provide that recognition. Because that's what our folks are looking for, is that intangible, informal type of recognition. It's the handshake, the pat on the back, the verbal affirmation that you're doing a good job. You know, conversely, it may have been a bad week within your organization, and you're not going to provide recognition to anyone. I'm okay with that, but I wanted that mental trigger on our agenda so that we can remember if we need to recognize folks. Pass up, pass down. Let me share with you how Learjet does this. And when they have their meetings, they call them stand-ups, because they don't sit around the conference room table. They literally stand up around their scorecard, and they talk about their performance. And here's how their meeting process works. And it starts on Monday morning with the senior leadership team. They come together at 9 a.m. And they talk about what is the critical information that we need to disseminate throughout our organization. And you see there it says it remains unedited and intact. That's where the pass-up, pass-down person, that meeting role I talked about earlier, comes into play. Because what I don't want is I don't want those 10 leaders writing down their version of what the pass-up, pass-down is. I want one person documenting that, and then you know, some organizations, they make a copy of it on a piece of paper and they hand it to everyone, or they send it out on email for someone, and the subject line is pass up, pass down, so they know what it is. So they meet at Learjet. They meet Monday morning at 9 for about 45 minutes. The next thing they do is at level 2. So a member, and we'll say, for instance, this is Justin Wellner. Justin Wellner is a member of the leadership team, so he's in that meeting at 9 a.m. But at 11 a.m., his team, the team that he leads, they come together to have their weekly meeting following that standard agenda I talked about. And then he shares with them, here's the pass down. Now, if there's any questions, that then could become a pass up. If Justin doesn't have the answer, Justin can say, all right, well, that's a pass up. I will pass that up to the team above me. So this process replicates itself at Learjet. So and if you see the org chart there, it just cascades down throughout the organization, so that by 9 a.m. on Tuesday, the lowest level in our organization, folks out on the shop floor, they have attended their weekly meeting following that standard meeting agenda, and they have received the pass downs for the week. This is how you improve communication in your organization through effective meetings, is by having the pass up, pass down process. And you've got, and by the way, and I've seen this happen out at Learjet, you've got the ability to audit the pass up, pass down process, or to audit the meeting process by having your members of your senior leadership team go out and during the week pull people to the side and say, tell me one of the pass down items for the week. And they may say, well, one of the pass down items for the week was that our benefits plan is changing. And the senior leader may say, thank you very much, have a great day. Or they may get a question of, pass downs, what are you talking about? I don't know what a pass down is. And then the next question is, did you have your meeting? Because right then and there, that's where they should have gotten the pass down, is in that meeting process. So you've got the ability very effectively to audit that process with that. So let's get back to our standard meeting agenda. Action register review number 2. We're just going to go through the 5, 6 actions that were generated in our meeting. We're going to get the verbal affirmation. People know when they need to be done, assign an owner to it, and a target date. And then the last piece is the meeting audit. The meeting audit is designed to make your meetings better because many times we talk about the meetings, as I said before, outside of the meeting. So close each meeting by discussing the meeting effectiveness and ask the questions, did this meeting advance the business? And the two examples I gave to you before about people arriving late and then the cell phone interruptions, those changes, those cultural changes were a direct result of the people in the meeting talking about why it was not an effective meeting. So add at the end of the meeting, thumbs up, thumbs down, did this meeting advance the business? It takes about 90 seconds to 2 minutes to complete this action, but it will yield tremendous dividends for you, for your team, and for your organization. I'm going to pause now. Connor, if you could launch our final poll, please.
More seconds.
All right, so the ideas I presented, I see that the defined meeting roles, the standard agenda, the action, the pass down, all very valuable for you. So thank you for validating some of the tools that I shared with you. So let's wrap this up and talk about when do productive meetings occur? Well, when you communicate instead of advertise, when you come together face-to-face to talk about the business and share with your employees key business information that everyone needs to know about to help them be successful in their role. You got a standard meeting process, and what I shared with you was the meeting process at Learjet. The meeting process, you have the opportunity to see where you've got the pass up, pass down, you've got the standard meeting agendas, you've got an action register, you've got meeting roles defined. The action register is a very simple tool that can help make your meetings more effective because they're action-driven, outcome-focused within your organization. The pass up, pass down, it connects everyone. If you're tired of having your employee survey say at the end of the year, whenever you do them, that communication is not effective in your organization, put in place the pass up, pass down process. You will yield tremendous benefits by having that in there. And then finally, you got to continually audit your process. And what I'm talking about there is the meeting audit. Asking the questions, did this meeting advance the business? Was it valuable and beneficial for us? What are the changes we can make? And I'm not talking about doing this once a month. I'm talking about every time you have a meeting, ask those questions, did this meeting advance the business? Folks, we've got about 2 minutes left, and Connor, I just wanted to see if we had any questions come in during our time together.
We did. Actually, I was just answering one for someone, but we had a bunch come in. Here's a really good one. Somebody asked, what if someone brings up an important topic, but it's not part of the theme of the meeting, it's not on the scorecard, for example? How do you handle taking care of that topic?
That for me is something that we put on the action register, and then we pull together the critical people necessary to deal with that topic. So we may have 12 people in our meeting, but that topic that came up is only relevant to 5 of them. I want to see something on the action register for someone to have the responsibility to establish a meeting and secure an agenda so that that topic can be addressed at a later time by the people that it's relevant to. That's what I want to see with that. One more, Connor?
Sure. Somebody else asked, you presented everything as if it's an organization-wide or a company-wide process. Do these tools work for individual teams as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a perfect world, you would have a meeting process for your entire organization. But I recognize that's not the reality. But there's no reason you can't take these tools that I shared with you and immediately implement them within your own department, business unit, group, and sit down and come up with who's assigned people to those 4 meeting roles. Come together and establish your ground rules. Publish a standard meeting agenda. Share with your team what's an action register, why you're going to use it, and how you will benefit from that. So you absolutely can take these strategies, these tools, start implementing just within your business group today. So let me wrap up. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern, we email our Tuesday tip for the month of March, a topic we're hearing a lot about. We're going to talk about employee engagement. There's our website. Connor had mentioned this earlier, and I've mentioned it. Learjet's a phenomenal opportunity to, one, come spend a day in a seminar on operational excellence where you'll learn how Learjet has greatly improved their manufacturing practices. They've improved morale within their organization, some best practices with them. And then the second day is a tour where the president, Alan Young, is going to be doing presentations from the senior leadership team, opportunity to look at their scorecards, tour their production facilities. And, oh, by the way, they build a really cool product, and that's a Learjet, and it's may even have the opportunity, they may be doing some test flights that day to get to see it. So I want to thank everyone for their time, and then as you exit, there will be a survey. If you want more information on any of these topics, or if you'd like to speak with us further about having more effective meetings in your organization, you will get that as well. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.